There are more examples. I thought I'm taking more examples. Especially in deep tech, there is a lot of these things. Like AI has been there for 60 years. It's only now it's not ahead of its time because compute is cheap. When I was studying, I went to study in a college called ISI because it had a supercomputer, one of the very few which was used for students. In 91, that was like a great ruling factor. That had 4 GB of RAM and used to occupy 7,200 square foot, which was always AC. My phone today has 4 times the capacity. Now, if I was building an image processing application for end users in that time, I would have been ahead of its time. Just because I can do it doesn't mean it will be used. That's also ahead of its time.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for the answer.
Perfect.
Enlightened me.
Next.
So me.
Alaraf. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm basically disturbed about the project development. When you first launch a product, how did you prioritize which features to include in the MVP?
I didn't. That's what I told you. I waited for the market. Right? And my question was, is this good enough than what is ambient? Now, I'll tell you a trick. Frustrating your competition and giving users to say wow and stay connected to this is very important. So it's not only important to launch, that's just a start. It's very important to keep on launching. Remember one basic theory of physics, V equal to U plus Ft. And no matter how high your U is, if someone has a higher F, he's going to overtake you someday. So do not launch with features. So if you have the capacity to build 40 features, launch with 12. Launch one new feature every fortnight, but keep them ready. That way your competition will never be able to play catch up with you. Secondly, you'd be lucky if 2 of the 12 are actual features people use. Then the third one coming in increases the probability of your engagement of your app. Correct? So my MVP readiness may be n features, and if that's n, I have a formula which can be stupid because I love maths in everything I do. I would go with square root of n as my first release. That has certain mathematical benefits probabilistically. I can prove to you why, but that's a different session altogether. Are you shaking it to me or someone else was telling something and you're shaking to that person?
I am, sir, I am in a PG and that caretaker was telling me something. That's why
I'm absolutely fine. I love this interaction. This is what makes things more natural. And by the way, guys, I appreciate you taking time away from your normal hours. But if you're in entrepreneurship, passion has to lead. You have to find time. And these sessions are valuable as per me because even if I give bullshit answers, you will at least know there are some trains of thought. I can actually will be the voice of what accepted intellectualism would be. And you can be a contrarian and beat the shit out of people like us. That's absolutely fine. Right, Ananna again. Go on, Ananna.
So I wanted to ask, like my project Smart Local, how do I launch it in the market, and from where do I start? Like
I'll
people
come
at
back
first.
to that. I think I've got that. Their deck is the one she's talking about, right, Rohini?
Smart Local, yes. The Jugadus that we had featured, and then deck also I shared.
It's that 5 Panchamurti.
Yes, Panchamurti.
Right.
Yes, sir, we are that.
Ananna, so you have gone much deeper, so I will not give you a generic answer. That will be insulting. I will circle back to you and I'll talk specific to your project because each project has a particular way of going ahead, and generics would be too vague for you guys, right? So I will get back to you on that. By the way, it's a great first cut, but take this as a positive criticism. It's very naive. You have looked at the best case. You have not looked at the edge cases which are bound to happen. Right?
Okay,
Your
sir.
dependency on other sources and contingency for that is not built. Cost factors on a recurring basis is not provisioned for. So a lot of things are there that proves that I have gone through your proposal. I'm not talking out of air. So I will give you a right answer in appropriate way. Maybe we'll just have a call with your group. I'll find some time and do it. And by the way, whenever there's an interesting project, I will give that time. Right? You are the first to start. I hope it will be
Yes,
more
sir.
interesting in future. But it was a good start. So I'm willing to give that time and make sure that it comes in the right way. We will schedule that. Let some of the lectures get delivered because I think I'm jumping the gun or preempting some obvious things, which would be better. So Rohini, after this, as you can see, their questions have spread all across the lecture sessions. And now you would understand why the coverage of the 17 topics was so pivotal, because that's all the question that's coming. Anyone can do an Excel sheet, anyone can look up how to do cost accounting, but the basics we covered. They have not yet asked one question, so maybe I overdid that team building part, but that's because they have not gone into actual execution yet. And team dissonance and all are very important factors. So maybe we should re-look at the strategy of how we launch it. I would not mind that before they go on the puja vacations, you launch everything. Because anyway, after that, they are supposed to get the leadership thing, then the formation, then the activities will take over. Lecture दे देते हैं सब कुछ ना, बहुत देर हो जा रहा है.
Correct.
क्या फर्क पड़ेगा?
In
Excitement
fact, Sandeepan ji, the way you had shared with me, na, in that only we will add everything and put on the.
Yeah, I'm saying that. See, the thing is, these are smart kids. They are used to going through Udemy and reading it. It's gone are our days when we had to do sequential lecture. दो के बाद तीन आएगा. If they skip and try to be over smart, I have also put in traps. They have to go back to the old session to understand some part of the new session. So let's see who wins. I'm willing to play this chess with them.
Done.
Ananda, I'll come back to you. We will have a separate discussion on that part, okay?
Sure, sir. And really, I'm very grateful to you for the time that you put on our project and the
Don't be,
valuable.
make us proud. No gratefulness, no thank yous needed. Success is all we are looking for. At the end of 18 months, I want at least 3 of you funded properly and hopefully 30. Let's see. Okay?
Hopefully, sir.
Perfect. Devajyoti, next.
Hello, sir, again.
Yes,
Sir, can you share one of the major setbacks you faced in your business journey and how did you overcome it to continue moving forward? Like, can you give me, sir?
It's a real story. So, the day we launched Money Control, what we expected and what the usage was horrible. We were expected at least 500. So remember, we're talking in a very different generation. 97 is very different. The total number of internet users was 50,000. So we are talking, but we had expected 500 page views. We got 35. And we knew we cannot sustain. So I got very dejected. I took a walk. I walked up to we were very close to the BSC exchange. We walked up to there and I actually caught hold of a trader and said, "Aap use क्यों नहीं करते?" His simple answer was, "अंग्रेजी कौन पढ़ेगा?" And then I realized, for all this time, I had not realized that unless it's in Gujarati and Marwari, which is 90% of the traders, this has no help in hell. The erudite learning things and all will come much later. They used to use the internet from the colleges and all. They would come once in a while. They were more busy with setting up the Hotmail accounts and trying to get on bulletin boards than look out for finance things. It was an unknown thing. There was no technology to put fonts other than English in those days. Right? Browsers were new. You have not even heard of those browsers probably. Netscape, Mozilla was just coming up, 0.02 version. No one knew it. It was IE, Internet Explorer and Netscape, and there were 2 versions of every site. There was no technology which could go for those. So what did we do? We replaced all the labels with images. And depending on what language they were choosing, the images would change. That's how we managed. Now this is a part of it. Now I'll answer one of what Jagrit had asked, I think, and you were asking, of being ahead of time. 3 years back, we had started a startup called First Sense, which was for video-based fault detection for old age people. We were too ahead of its time. The technology was superb. It worked. Cost was too high, and no one was willing to accept because of notions of misunderstanding of what video can be. No one realized that when you are shooting a video, it's not going on the internet. It can be done locally. No matter what we said, no one believed it. Today they do, because they have got proof with WhatsApp usage. They know that even when they are on the flight, they can still see WhatsApp videos. That means it can exist without the internet. Sometimes you misread the market completely. How do you get rid of such a failure? You abandon it for the time being, and you wait for it to come back with the right timing. So I've given you two stories: resilience and utter dejection and giving up. Choose your path.
So sorry to interrupt, but can you talk about the idea about the old people you talked about? Can you talk about it more in depth?
Well, the in-depth would need a lot of, parts of it. There is natural behavior, there is things. So what we had done was we had done something called in situ. We had built a special camera with an onboard analysis part of it. Today you get it off the shelf with a camera called OAK-D, which can do. But we had done that kind of a circuitry-based thing on our own, which is to make sure no video goes, but just the detected fall message goes as an SMS to whatever is the caretaker. So no privacy is breached. That was the main thing. Fall detection, of course, is a very different algorithm based on physiology.
Fall detection is also being used by the Apple watches and like that.
That is using a lot of other sensors like gyrometers and compasses and all those things to understand that, right? So that's based on acceleration of that sensor. Ours was purely like a substitute for human eyes. So what you are talking is what we call in situ detection process, wherein the subject who's falling is giving indicators, which is basically gravitational oriented. This is from a POV method, where from a point of view of an observer, how do you detect a fall? There are very different ways of doing that.
Yes.
Okay, Rajdeep, next.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Sir, my question to you is like, right now we have product in every domain, right? For example, if I take out this data, it says that Swiggy was founded at 2014, Zomato 2008, Blinkit at 2013, and Zepto also boomed just last year. All of these four give us the same product, like the same delivery thing, same products we get on board. So what should be our strategy to work on to get on the product so that our product must be different from what we are getting in market?
So, first of all, it's not an accurate observation. They have converged to deliver the same product because that's what everyone has figured the market needs. But when they started, they were all very different value propositions. Okay, you must keep that in mind. Zomato started as a menu listing thing. Swiggy started as a delivery. Before that, there was another startup which had architected, even seed funded, called Dunzo, that had a very different objective. Someone was doing a lot of other things that you know. There was night riders. There were that only specialized in delivering after 11 o'clock until 5 o'clock in the morning. There were all sorts of experiments. This is where the market has converged. Now, you have to accept one thing of momentum. So if you understand 1 ton moving at 1 millimeter per second will still smash to bits 1 gram thing moving at 100 meters per second. That's where the startups have to worry about. Now, that happens if they go on a collision course. If they're going parallelly and the big stone has to turn its head to reach it, there's a chance they can accelerate and flee its trajectory, and the big stone is too unwieldy to change pathway and go and chase the small stone. So play to your strengths, play to your momentum, play to your mass. That's a simple story.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, Bidisha, how did you jump the queue? You were not there in the queue just anyway, go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. My question is that as a beginner, we will make a lots of mistakes when we want to start a startup.
Yeah.
So my question is that what types of common mistakes do startups make in their early ages? So we will get concerned over it.
So I think I have spotted out to one mistake that people make. Why you're doing it is very important. Often people do the mistake of doing it for fashion or doing it because they have a lot of greed and they actually don't want to solve the problem. Now, I'm not saying anything is impossible, that you will fail if you go that way, but I'm saying it's improbable. That's all. Some passion has to be there. That said, there is this famous thing called BCG matrix and a BCG hole, where you find an opportunity which no one has taken and you do it, and it's quite successful business-wise. So I cannot comment on that. But I think the probability of success increases when your passion is there, because good things take time, and only passion can keep you on to it despite everything fluctuating here and there. That's the biggest mistake people do, that they go into it for the wrong reasons. Apart from that, your team you select is equally important, and most mistakes happen there. Remember that with these two things not wrong, it's very hard for a business to die, because a business can always change and survive as long as they have the passion to solve the problem. The other thing is that you work too much on other people's advice, which means you make yourself a fixed plan. In today's dynamic world, having a fixed plan could be a sure recipe for success. So another thing I want to tell you, and I have again covered it in, so you may find some of the lectures boring now, but I have covered it. There's this thing called half-life of knowledge. So when I passed out of college, it was expected that 50% of things would get irrelevant only after 17 years. Cut to the chase now, when you are passing out, 50% of what you have learned will get irrelevant in 18 months. So by the time you're in third year, 50% of what you learned in first year will be irrelevant. That same thing goes for plans. And in a much shorter cycle, because it's game theoretic. Other people are also looking at it. Now, like we talked about the first mover advantage, the first mover is also a disadvantage, especially if you are doing something like a category creation. When you make a category creation, is there. Now, I have a certain stringency for choice of words. I like to use the words that entrepreneurs will always make errors, but they never make mistakes. What's the difference? The difference is, an error is when you are trying honestly on a new part and you're experimenting and you're failing. That's an error. It's bound to happen. A mistake is when you don't take lessons from that and keep on repeating it. Like when you don't dot a I, that's a mistake. But when you don't know that you cannot start a sentence with, or you cannot write I in small capitals, that may be a knowledge issue. Right? So be very clear, are you making a mistake? Are you making an error? If you don't make errors, you're not going to be an entrepreneur. If you make mistakes, you're not going to be successful.
Thank you, sir. I get my answer.
Very good. Okay, listen, what we'll do is we'll stop the question queue now. I don't care about the time, but we are already at the end of our scheduled time, but I will go on. If you have the time, I have the inclination, because we are doing it. I'm quite enjoying it. So right now there are 6 raised hands. We'll finish off this queue and we'll not take any further questions. Okay. So Shalini, Gaurav, Jagrit, Rishikesh, Antariksh, and Oratrika, we will answer these people and then we will call it for the day. We will set it up again more and more. Okay. Go on, Shalini.
So if today you had to start a business, right? Which sector would you be more inclined in putting your money
Culture.
on?
Culture.
So why do you say that?
I think, see, the thing is, there is something called definitive logic and there is something called indefinite logic. The way generative AI, LLM and all are progressing, definitive logic will become irrelevant in maybe 3 to 4 years. The non-definitive logic comes from the cultural aspect of soft sciences, psychology, philosophy, language itself. I think they will get huge prominence, especially the way we have treated it step-brotherly and step-fatherly in the last 22 decades. I think that is going to change. That's my bet.
Okay, sir. I got my answer. And you also mentioned about the fashionpreneurs and passionpreneurs part, right?
I sorry, you're muffling up a bit. Can you just
So
say
I'm
this?
so sorry.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about the fashionpreneurs and passionpreneurs, right? Like when you were answering a question, that you talked about the two extremes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to know about them. I didn't get your question.
So yeah. So am I audible right now?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah.
So fashionpreneurs, I did say, what is your question?
No, so I was just saying that we had this one session before our classes started, and even one of the speakers, even he was speaking about it. So I actually lost you a bit there because there was a network connection problem on my part. But what did you say? You were saying something about the success rate, right? So what did you say? The success rate of which of the two is? Yeah.
I actually said they are the two extremes, and the success rate is like a normal curve. Both of these groups have very low probability of succeeding. Someone who makes the right mixture, depending on the sector they're serving, they will be successful. And I give the example of a shy person getting into media has less probability of success, right? Though he's passionate about building the technology of something.
Yeah,
Got
okay,
it?
sir.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Gaurav Karmakar, next. Thank you. Gaurav Karmakar, next. Yeah, it's coming with a bit of a fuzziness. There's a feedback coming, I think. Can you type the question? Because we are running out of time. There's a feedback for sure.
We can take the next question, and Gaurav, you can type your question, all right?
Yeah. So next is Rishikesh Jha. Go on, Rishikesh.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
Go on.
Sir, my question was that, we don't have like capital to hire people with the proper skill set. So if we are building something, like there are various fields, like we need back-end engineers or the UI UX for like the team management part, and the for finance part, that who will build the revenue models. So how do we gather all the skill set we need in our team?
So I'll answer the question. Your English has the answer. You said we, and how do we hire them?
Yes, sir.
Make them we. Get someone with backend, tell him why your cause is good, and make him interested in your project so that he works as an equal partner without salary, just like you are.
Okay, sir.
You have two instruments. You have cash and you have equity. Treat them with
Yeah.
respect and share them equally.
Yes, sir. I got it. Thank you, sir.
Good?
Yes.
By the way, you got it pretty fast. I was very naive. For the first two startups, I didn't understand that. I didn't think anyone would value my equity. But then I learned better. Today in Zelpmoc, we're a listed entity. The largest shareholding group, other than most of the promoters are also below them, is ex-employees and ex-employees. They still hold close to 22% of the company. So that's very important for us.
Yes, it means I will distribute my company to my team.
You will distribute, but again, don't do it out of full trust. Make sure that you are very strong. So these are things we will teach. Make a strong ESOP or MSOP, whatever is the case in your case, and let people earn their thing. Just because they are promising doesn't mean they should get 10%. Let there be an agreement saying that so much issue will be done, and based on that part, it will be prorated divided between the performance. Then it's fair. You don't want a very bright employee coming in later and say, just because he's been there from the start, he's holding 20%, and he's coming in 6 months later.
He'll ask me to exit.
Exactly.
Yes,
so make sure that you balance it out. And if you're really passionate, that should not matter. If they're making your company better, and again, one maths you have to understand. That's very basic. Actually, I forgot to tell that. 1%, quick question. Let's see how good your maths reflexes are. 1% of a billion, 100% of a million. Which is higher?
billion?
No. 1% of a billion is 10 times 100% of a million. So don't forget that ever. So if your company is growing at a fast rate and you are getting scuttled down from 50 to 5%, but your company is growing at 1000x, you're still better off. Never forget that maths. That's how you start respecting. Then you will not have an insecurity. You'll actually get smarter people to come and work with you because finally they are adding to your value much more than you yourself could. Right. We will go to, who are we going to next? Antariksh, right?
Good evening, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Sir, so as you know, I am part of the Smart Local team, the J5 team. Sir, so what I wanted to know was, in the initial stages of any startup of any business, we will have limited resources. Sir, so what strategies would you recommend that we can use to identify and prioritize sectors to like delve into, to give our time into?
So are you an empathetic user across the 5 of you? Are you representing all the users of your product? That's the first question you should ask. If you can empathize, then answer yourself the question, what are you willing to pay for? That's your first thing. Now the sweet point is, no one can replicate and people are willing to pay for. Whichever is a cross section, that X is very important. That's your sweet spot. Because building a moat is also important. The moat could be through momentum, moat could be through technology, moat could be through deals you have done. That's also a strategy. But there are software moats also. Suppose you find out that, let's take a case of people that we don't talk about, urban company, right? You know what their moat is? Their moat is their kit and their training ability of how to serve customers. They don't teach how to chop hair. That they don't teach. But they teach while chopping hair, you should not sneeze. This is how you upsell. The kit looks professional. So there are many ways to build a moat and add value to the service. More you add value, the more you can charge a premium, more you can share the wealth. Second question, how not to kill your business? Do not overcharge. Always look for marginalizing profit and always be fair to the service providers on whom you're relying. So if you can, and because you're from Kolkata, I hope you still are socialists at heart, you should go for that part. I think that's a strength our side of the country has. Right? We like sharing.
Yes, sir.
And there is no harm, no matter what others tell you that you should be greedy and all, I think that's bullshit. The real strength comes from many sharing, because then you can increase the scope and that becomes your biggest moat. People love you. Nothing else can be a bigger moat. How do you make people love you? How do you make people feel that these guys really think about me? You're in that business. I know a bit. Guys, the answer is biased because I have a priori knowledge of what they're doing. This will change for each of your businesses. Don't take it as a sacrosanct answer. This cannot be given in a generic way. I'm having to be specific here and I'm using the prior knowledge. But Antariksh, we will actually take it when I talk to you guys one-on-one. All right?